And so we're moving to item number 14, amend policy 26, verbiage from, quote, all projects over $5,000 will require approval votes at 2 separate board meetings, end quote, to, quote, all projects over $50,000 will require approval votes at 2 separate board meetings, end of quote. And 2/3 of the members are required to pass it. I guess it's got my name on it.
I think you read the verbiage number wrong.
The verbiage number wrong?
Yeah, you said 26.
It's 20.
It's 29.
Oh, policy 29, okay, thank you. Anyway, personally, I think the $5,000 is too low. And, talking to some of the board members, I think there's some agreement with that. I'm not sure $50,000 is the correct number, but anyway, that's what's in there. So, is there a motion on the?
I move to approve.
Move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second for
I like to make a
discussion. So,
Who moved to approve?
Steve Rollinger approved, or made the motion, seconded by Dan Driscoll, and now it's open for discussion. Yes.
I agree that the $5,000 is very low. At the same end, I would say $50,000 is very high. That's a quarter of our annual budget to go in one vote. That doesn't give the voters a lot of time to comment. That was specifically why we have 2 votes. It wasn't just for our sake, it was for the public's. I would like to make a substitute motion that we say the number would be 12.5. That would cover most small projects and most small entities, non-governmental, that are large projects. Large projects should still take a large 2-party vote.
So you said 12,500?
Yes, and I think that would catch most of these small projects that would do our reduced schedule, be hurt if they don't get heard right away. Any projects above that are large enough where a month isn't going to hurt them.
Is there a second to the
Second.
substitute? Seconded by Nathan. Discussion on that motion. Personally, I think that's too low. I think 25,000 would probably be more appropriate. That's my opinion, just because the value of projects have gone up and we haven't changed that for a long time. And especially going back to 7 meetings, one of the reasons we went to 12 meetings was so we weren't holding up projects because of that. So that's my opinion. Matt?
I guess I'm just looking at what we have in our packet from, our administrator's summary of various projects that have been recently done, and looking at those, I don't know if 50,000 is the right number or not, but 12.5 looks like it would only catch, a portion of those, some of which are just a little bit above that, So I'm worried that it's a little bit low, given that we have a changed meeting schedule, and that would prolong any kind of a decision on many of the things that we got on page 13 of our packet today.
Which one do you guys?
Go ahead,
Nathan?
I think it would be prudent to not go whole hog on this. We can always change it and increase it down the road if that's something that we want to do or feel like we need to do. The 12.5 number is 2.5 times what we've got right now. If you're looking at 25, that's 5 times what we've got right now. That seems unreasonable to me. So for whatever it's worth, I think there should be protections for the taxpayer in what we're doing here.
So just for reference, here's a list going back a couple, 3 years of grants that we voted on, of funding we voted on.
If you take out that 150,000, what's the average?
it's pretty
I can
low.
hardly see that.
I can see them 11,
Could you
8,
read them
8.
maybe? With the curvy screen, it is hard to read.
Okay, 2020, this is the recent one, USGS stream gauge is 15,600. USG water quality monitoring of Canyon Lake, 18,000. And 2019, on-site wastewater treatment, 5,000. Stream gauge is 11,000. Hydrovac grant, SDA, RWS, 5,000. And then Deerfield Pactola model, 25,000. Green Roof Project Airport, 26,000. Missouri River Water Allotment Study, about 37,000. And then USGS water quality monitoring going back again, 40,000. This was the original one. And then the Canyon Lake restoration, the dredging pipe, et cetera, was 150,000.
Yeah.
Game Fish and Parks.
So I'm sure you would cover half the projects we did last year, the 12,500. The other projects are large enough to warrant a taxpayer consideration to voice their concerns for or against.
I think it's too low personally, but,
I only see that it would cover two.
No,
Three.
three.
Well, the
Two,
one-
that was half of the ones we
5,000
did. Yeah.
well, the
Yeah,
one
we
that
did 6 projects last
well,
year.
you have to remember the one with the hydrovac thing was 7,500, and we went to 5,000 so we could do one vote. They
But the
actually
12.5 would have covered,
we covered that one, yeah.
and the 8,000 and the 11 ones.
Looks to me like it's maybe 25, not even 25%. Did you have a comment, Ron?
To me, 12.5 seems very low. I'd certainly be open to 25,000 instead of 50,000. Is certainly middle ground between 5 and 50,000. So that would certainly be a number to consider.
Well, we have a vote, we have a motion on the floor for 12.5. Let's,
I have a comment. Dan, I understand how you feel. Most projects you've looked at in your past are federal projects. They're very expensive. But we're a small board with only $200,000 a year. And even with only one vote, with 12,500, 20 votes, that's 2 projects a time, we're out of money. With $50,000, we're out of money 4 months.
What did
Okay.
Tom say?
Can I propose a third?
maybe make a substitute motion.
Okay, I would make a substitute motion to have it be $25,000.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Dan Driscoll. Discussion. Nick?
I think that's, I just want to get it on the record. I think that's unreasonable and irresponsible for us to do that as a board. I think anybody who votes to try to spend taxpayer money as quickly as possible should be held to account for that. So I will be voting against that.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the second substitute motion for the number 25,000 as the number, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Nay.
Nay.
A roll call, please.
Okay, roll call on the substitute motion for the amount of 25,000. Williams.
No.
Rollinger. Jovic.
No.
Driscoll.
Yes.
Bjerke.
Yes.
Coe.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Bialotta.
No.
Mack.
Yes.
Substitute motion carries 6-3.
Okay. Thank you. So the number's 25,000. Thank you. Item number 15, discuss conflict of interest wording for amending Article 5 in the bylaws. Bob, that's your item?
I know, did you get a chance to, hopefully had a chance to read the draft proposed bylaws? It looks basically the same. Did you make any corrections to it, Mr. Chairman? And I don't think so.
I didn't make any corrections to
The
it.
only one I would like to do is on the last paragraph when we're talking about the first sentence, just move opinion, director's opinion, or provide information. Let's see, what is the whole, I probably ought to read the whole thing. No director with conflict of interest shall be permitted, neither shall they be involved in discussions on that issue, nor shall the directors, it should read, I think, shall direct, yeah. Where was I? Anyway, well, something screwy with that. Turn that off. Anyway, no director. I'll start from the beginning. I've had a little trouble with my own order. So, the director's opinion or provide information. They should not provide an opinion or provide any, information on that issue if they have a direct conflict of interest. That's what I was trying to say. So it just gets really long. The examples I used happen to come from Massachusetts, a couple of different federal conflict of interest statements, and that's why the appearance of a conflict of interest is almost as critical as the conflict of interest itself. Just that the regular conflict of interest applies to money, and if it just appears that there's a conflict of interest with that director and whatever we're voting on, it should also apply to our bylaws. And if we don't have some language in there for the bylaws, the state's attorney says that the South Dakota codified law does not cover conflict of interest for boards like ours. So I'd encourage, if you have changes in language, that we make sure Dan hears them and makes the corrections. Are there comments?
There's no motion on the floor.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we approve this with any corrections that we come up with. I don't think it needs to be done this time.
Pardon me?
It doesn't have to be done at this meeting,
Oh,
so that we can show it.
so you don't want to make a motion there? Or?
These would be this would be the language where it's for inclusion in the bylaws.
So you made a motion.
I make a motion that we approve this.
Okay.
Second.
There's a second by James.
And now discussion, I think we can change.
Yeah, now it's open to discussion.
Yeah, I have to remind you that bylaw changes require advance notice of the proposed change.
Make a motion, a substitute motion, we deny this. I think the current conflict of interest covering pretty much everything. Like I said last time, you gotta remember why conflict of interest was originally established, because at one time, you had mob bosses coming in paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a vote. I haven't had a mob boss approach me since I've been on the water board.
No, they work for USGS.
But in the city council, I never had a mob boss approach me either. I just smile out and stuff everybody. I think our current conflict covering anything would have to most of it. Unless some of you guys have some big guys coming to you for your vote. I haven't seen it yet, but maybe they can buy it.
What's your substitute motion is to leave it?
It's to leave it as is and deny the current motion.
Okay. So leave it as it's shown now, what we have now. Is the motion. Is there a second to that? Not seeing any second. So motion dies for the lack of second. Any other discussion? Ron?
I have another substitute motion to propose. I would leave our existing bylaws as is, as stated in Article 5, and I would add the additional sentence, and I'll try and read this slowly, it's not very long, Dan. Directors must conform to South Dakota Conflict of Interest standards in SDCL 3-23-1. I would propose to add that sentence to our existing Article 5 bylaws.
Okay, is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Tom. Now, discussion on that motion.
Does that bylaw, or that codified law, 3-23-1, does it cover the appearance of a conflict of interest? Is the language at all in there?
It covers the, what's in SDC, is in the South Dakota codified law about direct conflict of interest benefits to a board or commission member, elected board or commission member.
Yeah. And it has actually no comment on the appearance. Do you have it with you?
It doesn't say
What's the number? I can pull it up.
It doesn't say the words appearance in there. And I'm not an attorney, so I can't read between the lines, to speculate on what their language really may or may not mean, but it doesn't have those particular words in the statute. No. I got it here if you want to read it.
That's okay.
You want to look at it? Or? Okay.
I think everybody should look at it before we vote on it.
I like the idea of citing the actual location.
That was the idea of citing the location, so that it was in South Dakota statute. It was not something that we could misconstrue by, I don't know, making a mistake or whatever. It was just in codified law.
And the only reason I'm going to vote against that would be because it doesn't have or the appearance of a conflict of interest to a reasonable person.
Okay. Did you have a comment, or was it the same?
No, excuse me. I don't have a lot of faith, excuse me, in the state codified law in regard to conflict of interest. And I think that's why when Director Williams was working on this, he was looking specifically for that language. That language is common in federal statutes. I think the state laws are weak when it comes to conflict of interest. In my communication with the Attorney General's office, they didn't even seem to have a lot of faith in their own law in regard to conflict of interest, so I don't know that that's the route that we should go. So I would vote against it for that reason. I don't think it's strong enough, like Director Williams suggested.
It also doesn't have any punishment. It just says it's a violation. So would we then turn in any guilty person of our board to the state saying they violated this and are we to prosecute?
Yes.
I actually asked the state attorney general about it, and they said it's not in your bylaws, and it's not part of 3-23-1, having the appearance of a conflict of interest.
I have two things.
Yes.
So, one, would we turn somebody in for prosecution for violating this? Second, just so everyone's aware, if you haven't read the last paragraph, that if you work with any agency that we've done business, you cannot go for an employment with them for a year after leaving the board.
Oh.
If you leave this board or are on this board, you cannot work for, or even a year, up to a year later, for any entity that we've done business with. So if you're a student at, or a teacher at South Dakota School of Mines, you would not be able to teach at South Dakota School of Mines and would not be able to teach there for a year after we did business with them or your term ended on the board. And that is in 23.3.23.1. Last paragraph.
Is that in there, Ron?
which I'm fine with.
I'll read it.
Yeah, go ahead.
The last paragraph of SDCL 323-1 says, "No elected or appointed member of a state authority, board, or commission may derive a direct benefit from any contract as provided under this section for 1 year after the end of the member's term on the authority, board, or commission, except as provided," and here's where I guess I failed, there are some provisions in 323.3 and 323.4 exclusions to that, and I guess I didn't bring those citations. So in lieu of that, I'm going to withdraw my motion, and I'll second Director Rollinger's. So leave it as it is at this point. Oh, that one failed. Okay.
Yeah, that one failed.
I'll repropose that one. We'll leave it as it is.
That's a substitute motion.
I have the other codified laws if you'd like to read them.
You know, I don't know if we're really prepared.
I'll take a friendly substitute motion and add to my, to line with Bob. It said as a friendly motion, I ask you can add to my, as a friendly addition to my motion, what Bob wants. You care, so I'm okay with that. You can add that friendly amendment to my motion.
Follow after when it states a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest. I like that. Now, if you made the motion, I'll second it.
It'll be a friendly motion, in addition to my motion. I'm okay with that.
Does everybody understand
Was
that?
there a motion by Director Coe?
I withdrew
He
my,
withdrew his
I
motion.
withdrew my motion to add that sentence.
Then I thought somebody said they were going to reinstate Rollinger's motion. Did I hear that?
That was
and he
Rollinger's
said he
motion.
wants to amend his motion now.
The way I understand it, you know, if you look at what we have now, there's not the language of appearance, how do you say that?
That comes right after conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of
Appearance
interest
of a conflict of interest.
to a reasonable person.
Okay, I don't understand what the motion is then. Was it seconded?
I second
That's
his
the-
friendly motion.
Yeah, Bob seconded it.
Okay, could somebody tell me the motion again?
Refrain from a conflict of interest or an appearance of a conflict of interest. As perceived by a reasonable person.
There you go.
Does everybody understand the motion? Let's see what,
So, I don't mean to be. Well, so are we proposing to amend the bylaws with this motion?
I thought it was advertised because, do we have to?
We would have
put
to
it in the
advertise
agenda
it
right
since
away.
it is a change.
Right, 'cause
Yeah.
we announced it at the last meeting that we would be putting this on the agenda.
But I would believe since we are changing the language from what Mr.
Sure.
Williams had put in.
So we'll have to
and-
vote on it next time.
Yeah, but we can at least put it in, announce it, read it out loud, so everyone's aware of it. So,
And then
so if
Instead of
we
a comma.
act on this tonight,
at the end,
is the procedure then to
at
advertise
the
it?
end, go to the end,
I guess I'm trying to understand that.
comma.
I would
instead of
say
the-
That's when the secretary has to put out a
By a
note saying
reasonable
that we're
person.
going
That's
to
you.
propose the
Notice.
change, yeah.
If you
Just
do-
like we did for
Okay.
the ones
We can do
tonight.
that. So
Yeah.
If you put out there that we're talking about proposed changes, that qualifies, because they know that they want to.
Right, it'll be in the minutes, and it'll be on the agenda, we'll state it right now, that it'll be on the agenda for the March meeting.
Okay. Does everybody understand that?
Yep.
Any questions, Dan? Did you get it?
So the motion is to add this to the agenda, basically.
For the March
March
meeting
meeting.
for a vote.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
And just so everybody's clear, looking at 323-1, it looks like we would fall under that under state law anyway, because it says all state boards as well.
Okay. So, I guess I can't even read that. Oh, there. It's kind of wavy.
It's,
First thing that goes is the eyesight.
Well, it's the screen.
So does everybody
that
understand?
should be an or instead of right? Conflict of interest or appearance.
Or appearance.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is reasonable person in some of the
It's in,
information that you had?
yeah.
Okay.
And that's what Rollinger
Okay.
amended his motion to include.
Okay, everybody understand the motion?
So, well, we're just putting it on the agenda for next month, right?
Making a
Do we need
motion,
a
put
vote
it
to
on
put
the
it on the
agenda.
agenda?
I think we're gonna make a motion, put it on the agenda.
I didn't think we had to, I thought we just had to advertise.
And
Disclose it 30 days out.
I didn't hear what she said.
I don't think we have to vote to put it on the agenda. All we have to do is disclose it 30 days out,
We got a motion on the floor.
just to change the wording. But we don't need a vote on it. It should be just added to the
I think we should
agenda.
vote on it. Since we have a motion in a second.
Sure.
We're gonna vote on this language.
Hmm?
But we need to vote on the language we're gonna do.
Yeah. This, I guess.
Well,
this is
this isn't for now. It's not going to change it if we vote now. It won't change it till next meeting.
We're voting to change the language.
Which could have been done in committee.
Well, let's just go ahead and vote. All in favor of the motion on the floor, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. So it'll be on the March meeting. Thank you.
We still may be, just so everybody knows, we still may be subject to that state law. Because it says all state authority, board, and commission.
Okay.
We're still set.
Yeah, that was item 15. Comments from the chair. In the packet, we received a letter from Green Valley Sanitary District by their engineer, Ron Banks, and this is just a FYI, trying to give us an update on where they are on basically getting funding to putting a central sanitary sewer system out there. And so they have an application to the Department of Environment and Natural Resources for some funding, and also the MWest Assistance Program through the USDA Rural Development as well. And I guess depending on how that funding comes out, they may or may not be coming to us. Sounds like they will be coming to us, I guess, for some possible funding. That's just for our board's information at this point. And the DENR board meets in March 26th and 27th, so they'll know something after that, I guess.
Is there anybody here from them?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, they said they weren't going to be here.
Okay.
Anyway, that's just an FYI. I will tell the board I'm not going to be going to Pier tomorrow for that because I got a root canal.
You have to or
I
have?
have to. Tomorrow at 10:45.
Well, I guess you ain't going to be in Pier for that.
I won't be in Pier. And it's a little cold out anyway, so.
Some people do anything to get out of it.
Is there any, let's see, that was items from, is there any items from directors? James?
I would ask, as a common courtesy, that if a board member, director, or chairman wants to go and talk to a group of individuals about spending board money possibly in the future, that maybe the rest of the board has a heads up first, not get surprised waylaid by a government entity that says, oh, we've been talking to them for months.
Okay. Items from administration. Oh, you got some too, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
I just wanted to share that last meeting I had some interest in going to Pier to the water development meetings, and I am not going to be able to go either, partly because of the weather and some family issues. I'm going to Pier, but I'm going on to Highmore after that. And I also mentioned that I had Dan Malali's admin evaluation, and if anybody wanted a copy, it's a very brief summary. I have some with me.
Okay. Anything else, Ron?
This Friday, I'll be meeting with Dr. David Waterstreet and somebody from the Game and Fish. And I'm not sure if Director Bierke is going to make it.
I am going to go to that meeting.
We're going to talk about some of the things that at the end of our study that Rosemary Squillis did, and David Waterstreet was her advisor. They recommended some follow-on things that would help that tool for water management be more useful. So we're going to try and find out what his thoughts are on what that might be and what he might be thinking about bringing to us, as a follow-on to that study that we just got the final report on last month.
For the dredging?
What?
For the dredging study?
No,
The
for the systems analysis, where they used the mass balance evaluation for management of Deerfield and Pactola.
Oh, that one.
They said
Okay,
they
I
needed
thought
some
you were
more
talking
pieces to really make it useful. We heard some comments, I think, from the Bureau of Reclamation that said, gee, it'd be nice if we had this part of it to help it really work in a live sense. So he's going to try and help us understand what that might mean and what might mean for a follow-on proposal from School of Mines to come before the board for, another student-type project.
Yeah, I'm
And
planning
that's on Friday.
planning on going to that.
Hey, Outdoor Campus West.
Excuse me?
Are you meeting them at Outdoor Campus West?
Yes.
At 9 o'clock.
That was a handy place.
I love their campus.
Anyway, the professor said that because school was on, we didn't want to go to school because it was just too hard to find parking and meeting places, and so Outdoor Campus had a place for us.
Okay. Anything else? And moving on.
Right.
to-
Well, you get one at the end, down there.
Oh,
I wanted to go last.
sorry.
So, first I attended a January meeting of the Pennington Conservation District. Nothing really to report there, but for the benefit of Dan Mullally, I attend those on a regular basis, so I would tend to cover those unless I'd let anyone know otherwise. Typically I do go to those. There had been just kind of a notice sent out via email regarding potential publication in South Dakota Academy of Sciences on was it the Deerfield Pactola modeling, or was it the other item? I forget.
I believe it was the allotment, water allotment.
Certainly that's a good idea, and actually that's something we'd ought to think about asking of, basically all entities that do work when it's appropriate, that's a good venue to publish in. If it, in many cases they might want to publish elsewhere, but it is very appropriate and something that I'd recommend we ask people to do on a regular basis.
Okay.
And so then, the group of people that's here tonight, they're from Rockerville, and they're going to tell us about a water issue up there. I could have considered putting it on our regular agenda, but I was a bit reluctant to do so for reasons. And once they're done talking, I told them, they can have a bit of time here, and then I kind of want to provide perspective on, why I really didn't want it on a regular agenda. It's just some reluctance to do so. So I'm going to let them speak their piece and then provide a perspective, and it may bring about a bit more discussion. But,
would you be okay to use that time during items from the public?
That's okay. The main thing is I did want to provide kind of my perspective on, why I didn't go with a regular agenda meeting. So I really don't care, what you call them. That's fine.
That's the next.
Actually,
Yeah, and I agree with Thomas Mack. That's where exactly I was going. In all actuality, if it's something that needed discussion or a vote, it should have been on the agenda. But we'll accommodate them under public comment. Everybody else would be able to come in.
The intent is specifically that I did not want to suggest a vote on it.
Okay.
But,
Well, I think I told you.
But look-
that we go under items from the back, but we ought to go to the administrator first, and then we'll come back to the items for public. So, Dan?
Okay. on the Dakota Deerfield model, I was having yet another presentation by Waterman and Squillis, where they got more technical details of how to use the model downloaded, where all the files are. And so I downloaded the HECRA sim model and files, and I ran it a little bit. Whether it makes sense for us to try to do anything with it, I'm not suggesting one way or the other. At least we have it all, and I know where to go. I probably forgot half of what I learned there already, but I also, the Rosemary Squillis's final thesis before all we had was a draft, so that's, in a sense, the final report, you might say. I'll skip this DENR map thing. Just to mention, DENR would like to speak. The latest I heard is in March, Jesse Wilkins on the Indian Basins project. Jason Phillips would like to speak, and Director Williams asked him to be on the agenda at some point. Tentatively, I have him down for March on the Green Room project, and then we talked about Green Valley sanitation.
Right, they won't be here at the March meeting. Green Valley will not be here for the March.
Okay.
We're going to wait till after the, how much money we're getting from these two organizations. So
Right.
it would be the May meeting for that at the earliest.
Okay, well, and then in May, we asked Holly Telford to come back with an update on that grant. And then Ken Steichen has promised at some point on the Trinity Eco Park, which I know this kind of fits in with Director Williams' comment about people escaping their areas. And I'm going to try to get out 1099s by the end of the month. It's strange, this requires you can't download the form. They require a form provided by them, and they ran out, which is a bad way to run a tax collection agency. But
The accountant doesn't do that? The bookkeeper?
well, I was going to do it myself.
Usually it does it automatically. I
Well,
thought.
if you want to pay them, I guess.
Oh, is that
We
what
can
it
go
is?
either way.
The bookkeeper's done it in the past the whole time.
Yeah, and she retired.
So we have a new bookkeeper.
We don't really have a bookkeeper besides me.
Okay.
She really wasn't the bookkeeper. She was did the tax reports. So anyway, expect those from me. This is cleanup from 920 financial report to the state, and then many of you noticed the website's been up and down. And to make a long story short, I noticed it was down in December, and what happened is one of the administrators, this was years ago in 2011, his email was no longer active, so the company that handles our domain name sent out a verification request, which didn't go anywhere because his email wasn't active. And so for some reason, they just shut us. And I've been working with Tout Advertising, who does our website, and it's been up, and they'll put it up again days, then it goes back down, then we have to go back and tell them, yeah, it's really us, we're trying to fix it. Anyway, I faxed them a form with my credit card information, and to try to get things transferred to me. And then we're going to transfer it to Tout Advertising so that if admin changes, we don't have the same problem again. However, it's a little because we don't want to lose that domain name. And I think that there's so many out there trying to steal domain names that these companies are real careful about reassigning things as listing. So Anyway, there's no legal requirement we have a website. However, it makes things a lot easier after we're allowed to publish the audio in lieu of minutes immediately, or not immediately, but within 10 days. So I really want to get that back. The other side issue that unintended consequences of having these vanity emails on the website is those quit working when the website goes down. So if somebody thinks you're director to at westdakota.com, there's some, we use those so they don't have your real email. Those no longer work if the website is down. So I know if you have people trying to use that to get a hold of you, they may just get it bounced back. In fact, they will, because I've seen it. That's where we're at there. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think that one of our directors needs to go, and I understand you're the transportation. Could we turn the gavel over to
We sure can.
second in command?
Before you do, I have something just so you hear it. I'm just now learning that our tax professional is retired, and we should have put that out for bid quite a while ago.
Yeah.
Dan's been filling in the gap. That's why we don't have 1099s right now.
So
We need to put out for bid a tax professional. So we'll have to put that on the agenda next time, but maybe if we can go see who's cheap.
yeah.
But Kathy Haveman was her name, and she is who we used. I don't know that she was technically retained by us in any way. I don't really
Or if we
know.
just used her for, but I guess, is she the one who used to do our state forms and everything else?
Yeah.
And the budget?
No, I did the budget.
But
She
state required
did,
documents?
she did very little, actually, just because there's not much to do.
Is that something that you can do?
Well, it's probably supposed to
My
be a tax
opinion.
professional.
What's that? What's your opinion?
I think he has the expertise, but is he supposed to be a licensed tax professional who performs 1099s?
Okay.
Since we're a business and he's not hired as a tax professional.
Put together the committee.
I could talk to her and see if she's willing to do it.
Oh, okay.
Last year, she actually did it, and I said, how many? And she said it's free. So I kind of hate to just go back again and expect the same service. But if you want, I can.
Make 1099s.
Well, I think you probably need.
I'll have to give her all.
I was asking if qualified to do that, but.
Well,
You're not licensed, or, I guess I don't understand it.
I didn't know you. I didn't know there was any requirement, but there's.
Is anybody a tax expert?
Well, as an employer, I write up 1099s, but those are for my employees. Whereas Dan is the other business. I don't know the law in that
Are you volunteering to head up a small?
case. I can. Worst case scenario, I have to use the software to make 1099s. In a shortfall, I can print out 1099s.
What if we have this tax period, this tax cycle, and get
Because
something for
I
next
think
year?
they're supposed to be due by February 9th, the latest. Correct?
I don't know.
And it's short. I know the government shortened it up.
I think it's
Even the
by the
15th.
end of the month. But I guess if somebody else did it, I'd like to have everybody's permission. It's okay to turn those W-9s over to who's ever going to do it. Because right now, those W-9s are in my file cabinet. And if we had somebody else do it, we'd have to turn those over.
Well,
Well, like you said, our social security numbers are on those, right?
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's why it's usually a licensed professional, because they're not to disclose your information. Like the employer has your information because your employer, gets your social security and has to run it through one check in the feds and take out your withholding tax.
It's probably too late to get. something-
January 31st is the
If you have a
deadline.
social security number, it'll be locked in the locked file cabinet.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're not even out on the guy's desk. there's security controls, there's all kinds of stuff.
Well, Dave,
Me and Steve know all about it.
I'll suggest, yeah, and Steve might know whether I can do it or not, but I could call the Lynn and just tell her the situation.
Okay.
And I'm sure she would tell me, no, you don't want to get into that. And whether you want to do it or not is the second question.
Sounds like we're in the time constraint here. So,
Non-employee compensation.
I guess you're that, and if we need to do something, we could make a decision what to do, I guess. We need to make it be legal, that's for sure.
Yeah, just take it out of the office. Take it out of the office budget if we have to.
Yeah. Go into it, yeah.
Okay.
We'll go with that. I'm going to turn this meeting over to the vice chair, because I've got to take Steve home. So, everybody, Happy New Year. Good to see you again. Thanks for coming. So you'll be the first one. Tell him done.
Okay. You have anything else, Dan?
No.
You guys.
Okay, items from public. I think it's you, and then we'll do Barry.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Oh,
Good that you brought these, given the condition of our street. Those are a little hard to see, and I apologize, but I'll walk you through it here. Thank you for your time. This is a issue that is present in our Rockerburnsville area that has to do with water quantity. And you state your name. Lon Buhner. I'm a resident in the Rockerville area. We have an issue with the conditional use permit that is before the Pennington County Board of Commissioners. It's in the process of information being gathered by the planning department and the applicant. Because it's an RV park, it's a specific county ordinance that requires a lot of approvals to be held beforehand. I have presented this to the Pennington Conservation District. They recommended that I make this argument, so that's part of why I'm here. The first page just shows an aerial of our area. I have an X mark where the plot and conditional use permit is being considered. Our community is a low-density residential community, one home every 3. You can see it on the perimeter of that property. You see the split highway of Highway 16, so it's literally right at Rockerville. The page shows the proposal of the conditional use permit. It's an 89-slot RV park, 15 cabins, bathhouses, laundry area, store. The concerns we have are air quality, because he's looking for 3 fire pits. Water quantity, because our neighborhood, water is a precious commodity. We have 2 shared wells on lots adjacent to this property. Those shared wells go to homes, and we each have put in cisterns to 1 gallon per minute flow restrictors because of the lack of water quantity in our area. I'm primarily going to talk to you about water quality because I think that's really more of what this board deals with. The concern we have on water quality is the nitrate impact we're having from commercial properties that are already in the area. You have a motel that's adjacent, you have another motel in downtown Rockerville, and then you have the reservoir, or the Gaslight Restaurant. This particular proposal is proposing using 20 gallons of min water. They're in the process of trying to obtain a water permit. We have contested that, and that's going through the process in Pier. They're also stating that their volume is going to be on the order of a minimum of 10,000 gallons per day. I calculate it's going to be more like 16 to 18,000 gallons per day. And to put that in perspective, with the number of people that live in our whole subdivision, we have septic effluent of about 4,000 gallons per day, so it's more than 2.5 the amount that we put in. The next page, page 3, and I apologize, it's kind of hard to see, but this is a geologic cross-section, and if you look up, I've got an arrow. That arrow shows where our subdivision is, and we are just to the west of what they call a great geologic nonconformity uplift of the Precambrian rock, and that's where we get our water out of. We don't have any major water aquifers underneath our subdivision, and we literally have to produce water from fractures and cracks in this hard rock. Again, because of that, also, we don't have the opportunity of disposing our septic in a formation different than a formation that we get our water from. So we're disposing of the effluent in the same Precambrian rock that we're producing water from fractures below. The next page is from the EPA, and what it shows, if you look at that, it shows that a conventional septic system is very inefficient in removing nitrogen. Nitrogen gets converted to nitrate, and nitrate is very soluble with water, and that's the issue that we have with our quality. Water quality is nitrate. I will point out that this board funded a School of Mines study years ago looking at the nitrate concentration in the Precambrian rock, and Rockerville was identified as an area of a possible concern in the future. And that's part of why I'm here, because I thought it would be important to see kind of what's going on relative to what the study had found out a few years ago. Because of this inefficiency, we have seen considerable nitrate levels in our shared wells. Page 5 shows the nitrate levels in 2018. I went back to 2018 because there are two power systems that are near us. You've got one to the east, which is on the other side of that geologic unconformity. So they have the opportunity of disposing the septic in a formation that's different than the formation they're getting their water from. And you can see that even though they have got a more populated area and commercial entities in that area, they're below 2 parts per million in nitrates. We have Golden Hill subdivision just southeast of us, very similar to us, 2 shared wells. They had 5.6 parts per million. Our 2 shared wells, we had 6 parts per million, and then the closest well to the motel, which is disposing a considerable septic volume, we tested as high as 7.3 parts per million. I will say that we have an issue, in our opinion, with the commercial entities here with regard to the amount of septic they are disposing relative to the amount of septic that they have been owned by and permitted by the DENR. I have personally filed a complaint with the DENR this past spring. After that, they have handed it off to the county, and I've made the county aware of this. We haven't heard anything from the county, so it's an issue that we hope will be addressed to help with our nitrate situation. Nitrates, the EPA has set a limit of 10 parts per million for water quality. You can see that we're very close to that 10 parts per million. Above 10 parts per million, it can be fatal to babies. It varies for pregnant women, and also senior citizens can be influenced by it. So we're on the ragged edge of having what EPA says is unfit to drink. The last page I have is an update that goes beyond the earlier numbers from 2018, and we actually have tested 8.94 parts per million in June of this year on the closest well to this, the acres where they're considering this RV pond. That's the highest level that we have tested out here, and our subdivision was started in 1996. Our subdivision is pretty much fully developed, so there's really no reason as to why the nitrates are increasing, other than we strongly believe this is due to the commercial properties in the area. By adding another 10 to 18,000 gallons per minute right next door, it's going to be very difficult. I would say it's going to be impossible for us to stay below the 10 parts per million limit. Also in our other shared well, in 2000, and we tested the highest level in that well. The thing that we noted, because we went back and tested it in October, is in the last 2 years, our nitrate level has gone up 40% during the summer when that motel is peak tourist volume. In the spring and then the fall, when it's not that active, it's decreasing. So that's the first time that we've really got quantification to say, yes, we do see a trend. And we're deeply concerned by approving the conditional use permit. Literally, our water is at risk for drinkability, because I don't think we're going to stay below the 10 parts per million. I'll pass it over to Bill. He's also a homeowner in our area. If you've got any questions for me, I can try to answer them now. Otherwise, I'll pass it over to Bill.
One real fast. I'm slightly familiar with Rockerville. On the side of the highway where the water's testing bad, is that a lower elevation than Rockerville? Or is that slightly uphill?
We are. This point on this side of the highway is kind of this property right here.
Right where
we go down slightly lower. We're probably a little higher elevation than the other side. How much? Not much.
Okay.
There's not a whole lot of
That's what I
elevation.
thought. So it can't be highway runoff.
No.
Because otherwise the town would be worse.
No. And I will say this. When you look relative to the motel, it is a higher elevation than our shared well. So that's part of, we may be getting water movement for our subdevelopment area.
Community of Pine Haven, a regulated public water supply.
We are not. We are not.
You're under that 25.
We are under the 25 connections. We are 20 the number of connections.
Okay.
Our homes are owned by the homeowners. So we're an unregulated, that's why water information, this information we have presented to the county, we have given it out to the DNR because they haven't had the opportunity of having it. The closest information that they have would have been the Pine Haven or the Golden Hills subdivision, which is a publicly regulated water system.
Have you had feedback from the county yet?
No, we have not.
What's your total population within the subdivision approximately?
Our total population in our subdivision is about 65 people. The Pine Haven, the Golden Hills is about 70 people, so it's about the same.
The proposed RV park would triple to quadruple more or less that population during the, at least.
Yes.
If they're full.
Yes. Again, from a septic standpoint, they're going to triple to quadruple our septic that we have as a total community. Again, our community is one home for 3 acres, so our septic is kind of spread out. The thing about nitrate is how you try to keep the nitrate level low is you try to minimize your septic effluent, but you also try to spread out. That's why we're in a low density of 3 acres per home, because it's the rainfall that gets back in those fractures that dilutes that nitrate and keeps that low.
Have you talked, or are you aware that, like Silver City, the county came in and told them they had to take their septic systems and pump them to a holding tank and then have the tanks pumped? Is that an option that you encourage with whoever's developing that land?
Because it's an ordinance 306 and approvals are required ahead of time, that's different than a typical conditional use permit. And Cody's here, and if he wants to chime in here. But because of that, we've had a challenge in trying to deal with it, because the applicant initially said he wanted to go with what's called the next-gen system. The next-gen system is the state actually called it an experimental system. And they said, we're not going to allow you to put it in because there isn't enough knowledge. But the effluent there, the applicant actually wanted to go ahead and condition the surface, which again, the state said you can't do that. He went and changed back to an aerobic system, which would have cut the effluent down from 30 parts per 10 parts per million, but he's changed his mind from that and now wants to go more to a conventional system, the last we've heard. So again, we don't have the opportunity with the Planning and Zoning Commission or the Board of Commission to get the details. Now, what the county is going to ask him to do and what the DER and all is ultimately going to approve is still up in the air from the community's perspective.
Have you talked to the owner, potential owner of this new park, to see if they would be interested in partnering with you in creating a public water system that would be owned by all of you and used by all of you?
He has talked to me and several other people in the just to give you a little history, this was initially general agriculture. It was rezoned to highway service. The owner that had it rezoned sold it to an individual that has sold it to this individual, so the new owner is fair. He is aware that he's not going to be using water year-round because the RV park is going to be seasonal. He is well aware of our issues because the rezone got into these nitrate issues, got into the water quantities, but yet with that information, we've not gotten any indication from him that he's willing to partner us on the water side.
I was just going to comment that it seems like, to me, as an engineer, that would be kind of a logical thing to look at as a solution for everybody. That might be a win-win. You know, if he's really set on trying to establish something here that might be a good moneymaker for him and might actually be a good thing for the community and bring revenue to the community, maybe he'd be willing to drill a deeper, more productive well that everybody could use. That would be outside of that, that zone that's getting recharged by the septic tank effluent.
The concern we would have or the concern that our community would have, that I would have, because I'll speak for myself, but I'm not going to speak for them, is a bigger issue is the water quality, because it's much more difficult to deal with. It's very, very difficult for us to find a spot to drill another well, but if we're forced to, from a lack of water quantity, we could do that. The concern I have is even if we partner with him on the water quantity, that's the water quality, with him disposing of 10 to 18,000 gallons of septic right next door to neighborhood and literally just a few hundred feet away from the well that we're testing right now, 9 parts per million. So trying to get over that issue would be a concern for me.
Are there wells in the area that go deeper? I mean, into a deeper aquifer that...
Can I add something?
Sure.
I am a former NAR employee. I worked in the drinking water program. I'm pretty familiar with the Rockerville area, and good quantity in water is tough. Not like the Madison aquifer is down there at 800 feet or 1,000. It's not there. So they really don't have the opportunity to go deeper. And in part, that's why the town of Rockerville hasn't, added more industry. Somebody wanted to build a motel and figured out pretty fast there's not enough water. And the adjacent, housing developments like Golden Hills have water, but it's not.
You're almost drilling for oil at the depth you get water in Rockerville.
We did drill, the current shared well owners, including myself, drilled another well. Most of our wells will encounter some water at about 100 feet. We did encounter about 2 gallons in 100 feet. We took that well down to 600 feet and never picked up any incremental water. So it's sporadic, but you can't say that if we drill deep, automatically you're going to get more water.
Just makes it bigger hole.
There is no other zone. You're literally trying to find fractures, and it's all the same, very, very rock. It's kind of like looking at Mount Rushmore. That's what we're drilling in and trying to produce water out of it.
I guess just going back to things then, so if that's probably a solution that's not viable, then what about the other side, the waste side? You know, possibly partnering with this person on coming up with a community system that would treat for that everybody could use. Have you looked at that?
I have mentioned to the county that we have commercial entities that I believe are disposing of more septic than they have permitted allowables. In the heart of downtown Rockerville, there is a huge planned unit development being considered with a tremendous amount of population that's going to show up there. I have mentioned to the county just as a, hey, what about some general area septic tree opportunity that could not only protect our water, but to protect the water of everybody. Whether that has gotten any traction or will get any traction, I can't tell you. You know, from my perspective, I'm not opposed to development here, but I want development to be in the order of the amount of septic that we would have had if we would have had 5 single-family residences there under the comprehensive plan that was there for 20 years and under low-density residential, which is what all this was developed. The motel was there. That was the first in the Rockerville area. You know, the county in the past decided we should develop this on low-density residential, 3 acres per home. I am 100% convinced of it because they understood the geology. They knew the impact of that geology on the likely water quality if they didn't do that.
I just wanted to ask, is this the study to which you're, that we funded? Can you read that?
It probably is. I don't recall what the start was.
I'll just mention that our website is up again because I just pulled this up, but it is on our website.
If this graph is in there, then that's the study.
And there was a letter you had. I assume you wanted me to distribute this to the
No, that was you had asked when I asked about presenting to the board.
Fine, okay.
So our position is, because of the impact to our water quality and air quality, we just do not believe that an RV park of 89 slots and 15 cabins is the appropriate use. That's the position that we're at. And we've tried to explain that to the applicant, and the applicant, he still wants to move forward with this plan. So that's kind of where we are right now.
Okay. My name is Bill Hearn. I am one of the adjacent property owners here. And what I want to go over with you briefly is what happens when you have don't have well thought out water development. And the unfortunate part of this for me is that I am the first person incurring the of poor water development. The overview here, the first page there, you can use the map that Ron gave out there too. It shows property there where the RV park is proposed. It shows where the motel is, and then I kind of highlighted my property, and the X there is roughly the spot where my, okay, to give you a perspective there. You know, the homes in the area here are fairly, you know, upscale homes. Our home is appraised at $560,000, and that's kind of typical to the neighborhood. So it's pretty distressing when you buy a nice home, you feel that the home done everything appropriately, and now in our case, you have water that is no longer drinkable, that you don't believe is at all any fault of my own. You know, we do have individual wells in the area and individual septics, but that's been there for 20 years. And it's always worked. You know, we haven't had lots of water volume, but we didn't run out, and we never had had nitrate issues that they told us. So while it wasn't ideal, it worked, okay? Well, now with commercial development, it does not work. The second page of the handout there is just my personal story, okay? I'm going to use the motel as the commercial, if you will, okay? But if the RV park goes in, that'll be about 4 times the magnitude of what the motel is. So you'll be able to see if the motel here, I think, is having an impact. And when I get done, you can tell me I'm full of hooey here, and the motel isn't the causation, but just the story. On my personal well, the distance from the motel to my well is 228 feet. The distance from my personal septic and the only other private septic system is 390 feet. So it's significantly farther away, 71%. The hotel is operating, we're putting in effluent just slightly over twice what the permitted capacity is. So far, we've gotten no reaction or response from either the state or the county to why they're allowed to violate the permits. And I don't know, as a citizen, if you've got to sue somebody and make them enforce you, you shouldn't have to do that. But, you know, that's the facts that we have. You know, they're having, 40 to 50 people on site. My wife and I in the home, we have 2. Right? The contour of the ground, somebody asked about elevation. The motel septic field is above the ground level of my well. My own septic system is below the ground level of the well. Historical testing there, we bought the home in 2011. I didn't test every year. Didn't have a reason to appreciate it. Okay. But in that whole time period, whenever I did test, bacteria and nitrates were well within the range, pretty low, 2.2 to 2.8. In 2019, the motel, 2011 to 2018, the motel was inactive. Okay, so it wasn't putting out anything. In 2019, they started operating the motel. And then in 2020, we doubled the capacity of the motel, assuming probably, and doubled the amount of effluent he was putting in. And just this year, our nitrate level has spiked 12.9 to 3.2. First time I got the high test, that I can't be right, so I tested again and got the same result. So unfortunately, I'm the poster child, I guess, for nitrate violations. And we exceeded the EPA standards. And so I'm in the process, going through cost to cure here and putting in a reverse osmosis system to handle that. My full expectation is next year, most of the wells in the community will exceed that 10. As you know, this year we had highest rainfall we had, so the dilution factor ain't going to get better. Okay, it could get substantially worse. And I fully expect that all the wells will go over the nitrate level. And if we had more commercial development next door to that, it's just going to absolutely blow it up. Okay. Well, quantity of water is also a concern. I don't know that I can blame this on the motel necessarily. But from 18, every time I would test, I'd get about 4 to 6 gallons per minute. Last year, and then just a week ago or so when I tested, I got 3, a significant percentage drop. Our well is 200 feet, which is fairly common in the area. Ron mentioned several. We thought, okay, we just go down deep, we'll find more water. So we've had several that have punched dramatically deeper, 0 incremental. Okay? I mean, it's just not down there. So, the concern here is that adding more commercial development, particularly with a standard septic system, it's not going to work. Okay? And we've highlighted this before, and now the result of it, unfortunately. But the process, you say you talk about water management. Well, really not much management there. I think these are full issues that are going to happen with the geology in the area. So that's what we do. You know, the RV park is about 150 people. You know, it's full. There's about 50 people in the neighborhood. Some people smoother, plus a pool, plus a laundry. So, you know, it's going to have a lot of impact on both water production, but mostly on quality side. So it's very frustrating, homeowner and a citizen, that you've done everything you think you're supposed to do, okay, but yet you're incurring a significant deficit. You know, I just put in a cistern because I was worried that the water volume might keep dropping. Spent $19,479 doing that. I'm guessing the reverse osmosis system, by the time we get all said and done, it's going to be around the $5,000 mark or so, plus periodic maintenance on that. But if, you know, I think if this project is allowed to go forward, it's going to get substantially worse. You know, and I think all the other wells are going to exceed nitrates next year. So we're hoping y'all might, I know you haven't gotten in the position of recommending or not recommending, you know, economic activity before. And I think that I'm not in favor of economic activity. In my business career, I worked with state government on economic development, worked with city government, worked with the University of South Dakota. I've probably helped, I don't know, 150 entrepreneurs start their businesses and get going. So I've been, my whole life, I've been very, we formed a venture capital firm that equity partner on to have funds for economic development for projects that banks thought were maybe too risky to do. So I don't want you to think that I'm not, you know, I'm against economic development. That's not the case by any stretch. But I am against it where it harms the public and it's not done in a responsible way.
I feel for you guys, but did anybody explain to you guys that we're not a regulatory board? That we don't have the power to stop them?
And I'm not asking for that. What I would hope that you might do is write a advisory letter or whatever, DENR for the water permit hearing that's going to be held here next month, and say, whatever your conclusion is, but if you put an irresponsible use and would have a negative impact on water, I mean, I think that's in y'all's purview to say, hey, we don't think this is a good idea. And that's what I would ask you to do.
Do you guys have a letter prepared? Because normally we don't write a letter unless it's a national-oriented project. Usually a group of homeowners come in with a letter saying, could you please endorse this to take with us?
I'm sure we can do that.
So Bill said I'd provide some perspectives on this. So these folks are within my voting area and, you know, contacted me, asked if, you know, we could consider, you know, making a recommendation against this use. And I said, well, that typically our business is in promoting water development as opposed to recommending against things. But this is something that under the guise of water management, it does fall within our purview. In terms of on the agenda, I did not want to do so for several reasons. One is that when it came to me, the time was too short. Our agenda was already posted on the internet. You know, if we're going to consider it like this, you know, we would really need to have the other parties involved, you know, fair notice to everybody. One of the other perspectives is that this really isn't the business that I'd like to see West Dakota in that, you know, the first thing they've kind of understated the magnitude of the availability of water side of it. You know, right now there is a water right hearing will be held in February. The Water Management Board. The period for public comment on that ended December 16. You know, we actually comment on that, but it really is the business of DENR to evaluate the water rights end of it. You know, I really don't want people to come in and say, well, we have a problem here, and we say, well, okay, we'll oppose it. I mean, you really need to, you know, do the research on it. But Bill was the one that contacted me after contacting Dan, you know, that said, you really do have legitimate concerns here, and on the septic side also, you know, similarly, it's the county that approves the zoning. Those things said, you know, at this point in time, basically the DENR recommendation is for approval of the water rate. You know, these wells are producing 3 and 4 and 5 gallons a minute.
1 and 2 in some cases.
Right. That is not there. There is a very legitimate concern here, and if that hearing, you know, does get extended, I mean, I certainly would, you know, entertain the thought of putting it in front of the board to provide a ration on this. Similarly, from the zoning standpoint, I just honestly can't imagine allowing an RV park to dispose of the waste in that setting. The only way that you can maintain your water volume is, like Lon had pointed out, you're basically recycling what typically we think of as consumptive use, you know, bathing, dishwashers, etc. Basically, if you put it back into the ground, anyhow, all of these are bad scenarios. So, you know, I said, well, why don't we come in and I'll do an item from director or, you know, public, however we do that. But, you know, this is a little different deal for us. You know, one of the mentions was fire pits and air quality. Well, that's not our business. You know, kind of a consideration was the Pearly Pit. You know, there was a lot of opposition up in that same area by Bear Country, you know, the quarry that's proposed. And, you know, I was contacted by people there about, well, what about the water end of things? And, you know, I really don't want every time somebody's got something in their backyard, they come in and tell, well, let's go to West Dakota and have them oppose it. The concerns here are immensely legitimate, and I guess, you know, maybe it'd be appropriate to ask Cody, at what point in time does this go through the planning? Do you have a planning commission? Does it go through the planning department before it goes to the county? How exactly will the process work there?
So conditional use permits only are approved by planning commission.
Can you, just so people understand what's kind of going on.
Sorry, Cody Sackham with the county. Conditional use permits only go to commission. They can be appealed to the county board, and then it goes to the county board. I think, if I remember correctly, this has already been to planning commission once.
I'm sorry, Cody, let me correct you. Because this is an RV park, there's a separate county ordinance 306. This be approved by the Board of Commissioners. It will go through the Planning and Zoning Commissioners. Cody is right on a general, typical conditional use permit that lies with.
And to go on top of that, technically all conditional use permits are actually approved by the board and commission, the recommending body, and then the board has overall approval. The last I knew that it was being continued until the rights. So I'm not super familiar with this actual permit per se. The last time I knew anything on it was that it was viewed until they figured out their septic and their water.
Those were the two big issues. There were three big issues. I don't remember the third. And again, that's unique to the Section 306 RV park, where they have to have those approvals before they're even considered, before they're supposed to go in front of planning and then the Board of Commissioners. So it creates a heck of a problem, because people like me have to go to Pier to try to deal with the water rights permit. because he needs that approval before he can even go find out whether or not this use will be allowed by the Board of Commissioners. And it creates a tough deal for everybody.
Well, you know, I'd like to get this, I think it's irresponsible development. I'd like to stop as early as possible as we can. And the water rights permit is one of those options, okay? So that's why we were addressing. I am going to send in a letter to ask that they postpone the meeting because we're scheduled now. I'll be out of state and I'd like to be able to testify. And I expect that that will be granted. So it will open up that period again for additional public comment and such. Like I said, if you believe or want to do additional investigation and agree with what our position is, we could provide a law and endorse that, go to the DENR and give them more information. Several things that were put in their engineer's report, I wouldn't go wrong, but they're incomplete. There's a lot of data that we have on unreported wells and stuff that they do not have. So the engineer's report, you know, just didn't have information. And I'm hopeful when they see that information, they may reconsider the position.
That's what makes. I'm sorry for interrupting. That's what makes this so difficult to deal with, because DENR, when they prepare the report, they don't know that we have installed cisterns with 1 gallons per minute, and they don't deal with that. Several years ago, thankfully, but several years ago, we actually had to haul water because our well wouldn't even make a minute on average. The well itself, and we're trying to share that water. Our nitrate levels aren't reported to the state because we're not a public water system. We have a way of getting that information to them, and then all of a sudden we get notice of a hearing or application that we can take. And again, our first time of getting this information to the county DENR, we've been trying to do this, but again, this after the process has already started and the snowball has moved because they've already spent 60 days doing their report before and develop recommendation before the notice shows up in the journal. So we get a notice and say, hey, we're going to contest this, but the report has already been prepared. Maybe they would have not approved it if they'd have as much information as we had. We don't know. So that's where we're at. We're going to be saying something with the county. I have been sending letters quite often to the county saying, here's some information, here's some new information, consider that as you move forward. Where the commissioners are going to be on this. We don't know where planning and zoning is on this. I will say this, the planning and zoning commissioners voted against modifying it from the long-range density plan, or the long-range plan of low-density residential to highway service. Ultimately, was changed by a 3-2 vote with the Board of Commissioners. From the Board of Commissioners, in their defense, our commissioner, who was a new commissioner, said, I don't know what they're going to put in there. They may put in just a 2,000 square foot convenience store that's going to help the neighborhood that really isn't going to use it. So he said, until we see what's in there, I'm going to go ahead and vote to change it to highway service. So he now knows what's there. Hopefully he's to our community that he has a lot of concern on the RV park, but there's no way of getting this process stopped because of 306 requirements that get all this approved and then come in. And then by then, either he's going to have spent a lot of time and money to get those approvals for nothing because the county's going to say that's not a good use, or we're going to have an issue with our water quantity and quality because, again, we're going to, we are having an uphill battle because in our report that says, hey, we recommend approval, but they don't have all the information that we'd like them to have when they did the report.
Well, in March, you can count our
Point of order. Can we limit it to 5 minutes in case there's other people that want to speak too?
Yes. So I'm going to give the directors one last round of questions, and then we're going to go on to another topic. And I appreciate you guys coming and bringing this information.
Yeah, the people running the residential area, would you raise your hands so you can see? 9 o'clock at night, so I can get people here. You understand? You understand? Yeah.
Well, and I want to help you guys as much as possible. And if we need to put it on the agenda to vote for March, I suggest Mr. Driscoll get with you to help draft, because you won't want it to make anything inflammatory or against just stating the facts, what your wells are testing at, and that will not improve. And that'll get more flies without
Very
anything.
appreciative of that thought. Yes, sir.
I had a question for Cody. So, about 2 months ago, the company that is working with this potential developer here, KTM, they hosted a presentation on a new type of wastewater treatment and disposal system. Are you familiar with that?
I'm familiar with it, yes, not the entire thing. I know that anything that's considered an experimental system has to be approved by DENR.
It's not been approved yet.
Okay, so are you familiar with whether or not they're proposing that for this, and if they could use it, if they did?
Okay. That system.
Was that the next gen system?
Denied by the system. Has been denied. It was called next gen. It's a next gen system. I know about the next gen system. I research on that. I won't take the time. I'll just say that DENR took a look at it. They were trying to get DENR to approve it. DENR said no, based on the lack of experience. They see it in the use you want to put it in. It was not enough.
Good.
Okay, Mr. Copeland, and then we'll move on to any other comments from the public.
It's either for Bill or for the gentleman, sorry I forgot your name, but Lon. It goes to the water rights question. And so this sequencing of, when you've been, putting this information into the DNR, have you done it in a kind of a formalized way where you've requested it based on information they might not have had when the engineer's report was written, coupled with the fact that Mr. Hearn won't be able to be there? It would seem like a pretty easy thing for them to have a continuance for new information and maybe a revised engineer's report.
What the process was is we get a notice of the hearing.
Right, I understand.
And
it's in that arena for a long time.
And then we have like a 2-week period to file to contest it.
Right.
I wrote a 4-page letter saying, from your report, here are issues that, in my opinion, need to be addressed. There were a lot of issues. I got into the nitrate issue, present all the specific information, but I said, look, we have water quantity issues because of the cisterns and the lack of water production. We have water issues because of our nitrate levels. I put that in my letter contesting it.
Okay.
That's going to be going to the arrangement board people because we contested there is a hearing that's scheduled.
Right. So it'll be a contested case hearing where the engineer's report will be laying there and the new information will go to the board with your testimony to help the board understand why there may have been an incorrect engineer's decision.
That's correct. Okay. And the board will have the opportunity to approve it the way it is, deny it, or amend it.
Right.
So that's what's going to happen at the board. That will be the opportunity to say, here's the new information.
Right. Okay. Very good.
Thank you, guys, for commenting.
Thank you all.
Any other items from the public? Aaron?
Yes. I have 2 things, and I don't have enough of these cards. I'm going to get one with the board. On first, I'll remind everybody that World Water Day is March 22nd, March 21st at the jury, starting at 2 o'clock. There'll be a 2-hour presentation panel, discussion, etc. The next thing is, you were all here for the presentation 3, and they gave it the glad hand about how great people they were.
I read through that. Can you hear me?
And there's going to be a Forest Service meeting. They're going to talk about what their concept is Thursday, District Ranger Station, from 5 to 7. It's open to the public. They plan on having some kind of presentation at 5 o'clock and then a discussion or whatever. I don't know what their plans really are. But that's the first deadline. And the second one is February 5th. That's when public comments end regarding proposals around Silver City, Bushla, Rochford, et cetera, all that gold mine. If you've been keeping up with the paper, you know that there's been renewed interest, and all those claims of 2,500 or so free owns pretty much straddle Rapid Creek, and some of them abut Pack Toll, and they're not just mine, it's too deep, so it's going to involve chemical extraction. You're going to have problems with water quality coming into Rapid City and Ellsworth. So that's just something to think about. I'm done.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public who would like to comment?
Motion to adjourn.
There is now a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Seconded by Williams. Discussion.
I don't want to.
Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye. All those who want to come see me, I'm going to tell you how to get stuff fast.
We can talk more with them right now here.
It's a very good chance that they could make a decision contrary to the engineer's report. If the engineer's report was deficit in information. What did I do wrong?